Hey guys, what's up? Kalamazi here again, and today we're going to be looking at another island expedition. Once again, it's on the Ungal Ruins, but the difference from last time is that with the most recent build of the World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth Alpha, they actually implemented difficulties for island expeditions. You have normal, heroic, and mythic, just like the regular dungeons that you can run on live servers, and there's a bit of a difficulty change when it comes to the actual expeditions. Mainly what they hinted at was it revolved mostly around the actual AI of the opposing team, so I think that we jump right on it and take a look and just see if there really was a difference, or if we could tell that the skill of the AI team increased or not. Now, if you're looking for more of a guide for island expeditions, check the channel. I put out a video when expeditions first came out on the alpha build or two ago, and that pertains a lot more to what actual mobs are worth on the island, interactions with the opposing AI, and random events on the island. This is going to be more so a summarized guide of the first encounter I had with the AI team and things of the sort for the Mythic Difficulty. Now, one of the changes that Blizzard announced with the most recent build of the alpha was that they were going to increase the amount of Azurite the mobs dropped or gave you when you killed them. As you can see, there's still ways to mine Azurite, as I just mined that Azurite node right there. But, you know, that was something that I really thought was a good change, because a lot of the mobs would give 2, 3, 4 Azurite when you first just actually killed them in the first stages of expeditions, and it really didn't feel like it was worth it. Now, this is our first actual interaction with the opposing team, so we weren't really sure what classes we had in play here, but we could see from a distance that they actually had a Shadow Priest. And one of the more interesting things, I guess you could say strategies of expeditions in general, is that you're able to attack the opposing team at any point. As you can see here, they had this, I guess mini-boss tagged here, and you can see he's tagged for the opposing faction. And we jumped in, and half the team was at half health, and it was really not much of a fight in general. As you can see here, we have to stop for a moment until the tag actually switches, to us. But it's just how the expeditions work. And at the same time, there have been times where I've been, working on or playing on the initial expeditions, and we've been attacked when we're tanking or actually just dealing with, mini bosses, one of the larger bosses in general, and they just wiped out our team very quickly. So that's one thing you're definitely gonna have to keep in mind when you're, working towards a common goal in these expeditions. Now, this was probably the first pull that we encountered was actually pretty challenging. I'm not sure if both that left side and right side there actually pull together every time, and we were probably a bit more reckless than we wanted to be. But these South Sea deck ratings really hurt. And as you can see, they also have the gold dragon on their portrait, and I imagine it's probably one of the mini bosses around the island, and it was a bit of a surprise because, as you see, most of the mini bosses are just one large mob. Whether it be I believe its name is Elder Scale. When you first come off the boat on this side, at least he was there last time we tried this expedition out. But this is definitely one mob, one pack to watch out for. If once again, as you can see, the alliance is relatively close to us here, and if the AI was a bit more, I guess you could, I don't know if you say tuned, but if they were actually going to, come and jump us here, we would have died easily. As you can see, we're both at half health, and our other team members actually dead. So that's one thing that I wish, I like to see a little bit more of, I guess you could say, as BFA and development of the enemy AI team moves along and moves forward. There's a bit more of, tactical, strategic gameplay. Now, you might have noticed there that a certain currency dropped while attacking those mobs, and it's called the Seafarer's Dubloon. It's the currency of the traders of the Great Sea, and it's redeemable in Borealis and Zuldazar. Now, I actually looked for where it was redeemable in Zuldazar, and from what I found is it's actually redeemable, from what I heard, it's in these specific expeditions. Now, where you turn them in is that there's apparently a certain NPC that spawns on the dock wherever you initially start this expedition, and you can turn them in for certain items that make your, I guess, experience in this expedition a bit easier. Whether it helps you with certain mobs or adds healing effects to your mage class or warlock class. For example, you could be using healing effects on your group as a destruction warlock. and it ranges from 1 to, I believe, 3 or 4 Seafarers doubloons, and we're going to go over that a bit more towards the end of the video. So if you want to see that and the rewards that it, you know, contains, stick around. Now this is actually our second engagement with the enemy team, which is the enemy alliance AI, and as you can see, my Azurite debuff is stacked at 250, where theirs is stacked at around 138 or so here. And unfortunately, you know, while this is our first interaction with them when outside of combat, because last time we actually ended up, you know, jumping them while they were mid-combat with a mini-boss, honestly, like comparatively to the very first expeditions I did when expeditions initially came out, and it was even on this same map, the Ungol Ruins, there really wasn't much of a challenge. I feel that with, you know, the recent tuning from the expeditions, you know, and implementing the difficulties, it really changed just the way the AI everything works and functions a bit. You know, I guess you could say before the teams we were up against were, you know, consisting of, you know, rogues and warriors and healers. I believe one actually had a prop paladin in it. But as you can see, there really wasn't much of a challenge from the AI there, which was a bit of a disappointment. And just touching a bit more on the difference in difficulty when it comes to normal, heroic, and mythic, this is one of the silver and gold elite trash packs here, and it really didn't provide much of a challenge. But you know, if you look towards the initial expedition video I put out, you'll see at the top of the screen that the Alliance to Horde Azurite, you know, collection ratio was much closer than before. Unfortunately in here, I'm not sure if it's really due to the actual mobs giving a bit more Azurite, or just, you know, the actual Alliance AI not putting up much of a fight. There's really just a huge amount of disparity between, you know, the current scores right now. As you can see, Alliance has 765 Azurite versus us having 3,408. And I mean, as you can see here, you know, we've cleared out a good bit of the island, but you know, unfortunately with this being, you know, the Mythic difficulty, I would expect it to be a bit more of a challenge, and I would be interested actually in seeing if it depends a bit more on actual, I guess, the opposing group comp. Because as I mentioned before, the groups that we encountered that contained a rogue, they seemed a lot more advanced when it came to actual, you know, my PvP interaction. You know, the rogue would actually be using blind and sap and gouge, everything along those lines, which makes me think that certain randomly generated AI teams are going to be a bit more challenging, you know, more so than probably the team that we're seeing here, for example. Now, as you can see here as well, the Azurite detector is online with the timer reaching 0. And the farther you go into the Azurite detector being online, even more detection, I guess you could say, actually becomes relevant. As you can see here, this is one of the larger mobs on the island that appears when the Azurite detector comes online. And you'll see here, he doesn't have a whole lot of abilities, however, he does hit relatively hard, and it's just certain things you need to watch out for. And that is what seems to be the case for most of the mobs here in the larger, more, the heavier hitting elite bosses you'll see here. One thing to note is that when you do kill him, he drops 400 Azurite for your group, and both of these large pillars around him drop 175 each as well. I believe there's some smaller ones there, as you see in the water, that give, you know, about 75 or so, but that's one big chunk of Azurite added to our total, as you can see at the top here. Now this is going to be our actual last encounter with the Alliance AI, and as you can see here, I got separated from the group a bit. I went looking for the actual portal that spawns at times in certain points of the island once the Azurite detector is online. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it, and if you look at the minimap there, the Alliance AI did give chase a bit, you know, especially when I was on my own. I didn't really notice them giving as much chase when we were together as a group. But as you can see here, you know, the hunter decided to try and catch up with me and got jumped by the entire team, and he does go down relatively quickly. I believe he kills one member here or gets them very low. And realistically, you know, they end up focusing me, and it's basically a 2 or 3 on 1 here, you know, I guess a 2 on 1. But, you know, I think that made me sort of feel sort of bad here was that I was able to kill the remaining 2 members of the team with them being relatively ramped up and me not even being at 100% health. And, you know, I feel like just with this actually being Mythic difficulty and the highest difficulty that they have, I feel like that they should have, you know, dispatched me pretty easily. Unfortunately, that wasn't really the case. Now, one of the things I was really thinking about towards the end of this scenario or expedition was that there's a really good possibility for Expedition Plus, I guess you could say, potentially becoming a thing. If you look towards, Mythic Dungeons live on the current servers, they have normal, heroic, and Mythic difficulties, just like Expeditions do now. With the vast success of the Mythic Dungeon Invitational and just how big and, a positive driving force that Mythic Plus has been this expansion, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Expedition Plus added in, I guess you could say, maybe in the middle of the expansion or more so towards the end of Battle for Azeroth. I think a good bit of tuning would be needed to actually get it, to that point where I guess Expedition Plus would be a thing. I think random generated AI team comp would probably have to be more of a thing, but it would be really interesting to see certain affixes. Obviously, things would be, a little bit different implemented towards Expeditions, and if Expedition Plus actually became a thing. Now, as I mentioned before, Seafarer's Dubloons are the new currency that drops in expeditions, and they're exchangeable for items that help your team within said expedition. So let's take a little bit of a look at what the items you can exchange them for are. Now, they are different for each faction and have different effects. For the Horde, you have Root Ball, Bloom Shroom, Grape Shot Grenade, Hidden Cannon, and Trick Vest. Root Ball unleashes powerful roots that root all enemies within 15 yards for 30 seconds with a 30-second cooldown. Trick Vest absorbs 100,000 damage and deals 100,000 fire damage to enemies within 8 yards when removed. Bloom Shroom creates a mushroom bloom, empowering allies inside the bloom with 12% increased damage and healing them every 2 seconds. Grape Shot Grenade throws a grenade, dealing 25,000 fire damage to enemies within 5 yards. And finally, we have my favorite, Hidden Cannon, which fires a hidden blunderbuss, dealing 50,000 fire damage to enemies in a 6-yard cone and knocking them back, only on a 1-minute cooldown. Now, as I mentioned before as well, the Alliance have their own set of items they can buy with Seafarers, Dubloons, that range from 1 to 3. You can buy Links of Faith, Blessed Bandage, or Sanctified Scroll, and you can also buy Grape Shot Grenade, Hidden Cannon, and Trick Vest, which are the items that are shared across both Alliance and Horde alike. Links of Faith unleashes chains of light that root all enemies within 15 yards for 30 seconds. Blessed Bandage has an on-use effect, which applies the bandage and restores 3% health every 5 seconds for 10 minutes, and deals 3,000 holy damage to any attackers. And finally, we have Sanctified Scroll, which on use calls down a shaft of pure holy light, empowering allies inside the beam with 10% increased damage dealt, and healing them every 5 seconds for 30 seconds. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this video helps some in getting a bit of a better grasp on what current expeditions entail. If you liked the video and want to see more World of Warcraft content, hit those like, share, and subscribe buttons. Peace.